She leaned in a little, not with her body, but with her attention. You could feel it. Something in the air had shifted. You hadn't raised your voice. You hadn't changed your tone. You just said one sentence quietly, calmly, like it wasn't even a big deal. And yet in her mind, a question opened, and it wouldn't close. That's what happens when a man speaks from grounded presence, not with effort, not with charm, but with awareness. She wasn't responding to your words. She was responding to the energy behind them. Most men never speak like that. They speak to be liked, to be understood, to be chosen. But a man who understands silence, a man who understands timing, he speaks to be heard once, because once is enough. See, women don't fall for the guy who says the most. They fall for the one who says what lingers. The phrase you used, it wasn't scripted. It wasn't smooth. But it was real. It made her pause. And in that pause, she started thinking about you. That's the difference. Most men chase attention. Few understand how to hold it. Because attention isn't held by noise, it's held by weight. And weight comes from calm, not fake calm, not I read this in a book calm. I mean the kind of calm that comes from having seen yourself, from being fully content with silence, from knowing that the words you choose aren't designed to trigger approval, but to reveal something deeper. And here's what most men don't get. You don't need 10 clever lines. You don't need to study neuro-linguistic tricks. You need to mean what you say, and say less. When you speak from that place, the woman doesn't just hear you, she feels something she can't explain. Because while most men are broadcasting desperation with every joke, every overcompensation, every compliment, you're doing the opposite. You're offering stillness, space, selectivity. That's what draws her in. Not your looks, not your money, not your fake bravado. It's that you're not trying to get something. You're observing, you're choosing, you're already full. And the irony, that's what makes her want to give. She starts to perform without knowing it. The way she tilts her head, the shift in her laugh, the hesitation before she speaks again. She starts looking at herself through your silence. And silence is a mirror. It doesn't flatter. It reflects. Now here's the mistake. Most guys feel that first spark and panic. They fill the space. They try to maintain the moment. But you don't need to maintain what you didn't force. Let it breathe. There's more power in a pause than in a performance. Women aren't drawn to noise. They're drawn to weight, to gravity. They want to feel something real without knowing exactly what it is. They want to sense depth before they understand it. That's the kind of man they remember. Not the one who had all the answers, the one who didn't need them. And here's the brutal truth. If you don't believe your own words, neither will she. If your compliments are a form of begging, she'll feel it. If your teasing is laced with insecurity, she'll smell it. But if your voice carries the weight of a man who has nothing to prove, just presence, just stillness, just truth, she'll lean in before she knows why. And she won't forget it. Because you weren't trying to impress her. You were revealing her. And no woman forgets the man who made her feel seen without needing to look too long. She'll test that silence eventually, not because she wants to break you, but because she wants to understand if it's real. Every woman does this, whether she knows it or not. She'll throw a curveball, a subtle one. Maybe she interrupts, maybe she pokes at you, maybe she asks something just to see if you flinch. She wants to know, is the calm you carry something you wear, or something you are? And most men fail here. Not because they're weak, but because they react. They think it's time to prove something, time to show they're unfazed, time to say more, explain more, laugh louder. But you don't budge. You don't flinch because there's nothing to defend. Her question is not a threat. Her teasing is not a challenge. It's a radar scan. She's looking for cracks. She's looking for contradiction. What she finds is consistency, stillness, steadiness. That's what creates attraction on the deepest level, not the words, but the fact that your words match your energy. You say little, and it echoes. You pause, and she fills the space with interest. You withhold approval, and she starts earning it. This is the emotional reversal no one teaches men. The moment you stop chasing, she starts chasing clarity. Not compliments, not validation, just the calm certainty of a man who doesn't need her to feel like himself. And this is where the entire dynamic flips. Now she's wondering if she's what you want. She starts performing, not in a fake way, but in a feminine way. She becomes more expressive, more open. She wants to show you her essence, her values, her softness. Why? Because she senses you're not swayed by the surface. You didn't bite when she was charming. You didn't melt when she smiled. You're not unreachable. You're just not reactive. And to a woman who's used to bending the room with her beauty, that is rare. That is magnetic. Because here's what most men never realize. Attraction isn't about pursuit. It's about polarity. Feminine energy flows. It expands. It explores. It reacts. Masculine energy contains. It witnesses. It grounds. When a woman senses that you're not being led by her expression, but observing it with quiet appreciation, something primal activates. She feels safe, not because you're soft, but because you're still. She feels drawn, not because you said the right things, but because you meant every word you didn't say. And here's the paradox. The less you try to be impressive, the more impressive you become. Because now you're not seeking approval. You're offering attention, but only when it's earned. You're offering interest, but only when it's honest. And that changes everything. She starts to behave differently around you. Her words slow down. Her laughter becomes less performative. Her posture softens. She starts wanting to be seen by you, not just noticed. This is where real connection begins, not with shared interests, not with forced banter, but with emotional tension, created through controlled expression. And make no mistake, tension is everything. It's the space between what you could say and what you don't. It's the pause before the answer, the breath between two glances, the silence after the sentence. Tension creates mystery, and mystery, real mystery, is only born when a man has the discipline not to fill every gap. It's not about being cold, it's about being composed. Because here's the truth, any man can talk. Very few know how to mean something. And when your words carry weight, women feel it, not just in their mind, but in their body. They feel the stillness of your presence like gravity. And gravity doesn't ask for attention. It pulls everything toward it, just by existing. She'll start remembering things you never emphasized. The way you held eye contact without expectation. The way your voice stayed low like nothing in the world could shake it. The way you didn't need to interrupt the moment with a joke, or a flex, or a self-deprecating story to win her over. Because the truth is, you weren't trying to win anything. You were letting the moment reveal her. And that is what separates you from every other man she meets. Most men talk to be heard. You speak to expose what matters. Most men chase a reaction. You study the response. And while they try to force connection, you let the connection test itself. Here's something no one tells you: women don't trust fast words. They've heard it all. The flattery, the clever phrasing, the exaggerated interest. But they feel when a man is anchored. They feel when your interest is not based on her approval, but on her alignment. That's what flips the frame. She starts thinking differently, speaking differently, acting differently. She's no longer asking, does he like me? She's asking, does he see me? And that shift is everything. Because once a woman feels emotionally recognized, not just looked at, but understood, you're no longer one of many. You become the one she replays in her head. Not because you tried to impress her, but because you quietly revealed her through the way you stayed still while she moved. Most men will never understand this dynamic. They'll keep performing, keep chasing, keep giving away their words too easily, and wondering why they never leave a mark. But you've chosen presence over performance. You've chosen clarity over charm. And in doing so, you've become unforgettable. Now let's talk about something even deeper. Why does this work? Why does a woman respond so strongly to a man who speaks? Less holds more and waits longer. Because emotionally, she's been trained to lead. Modern culture tells her to be bold, assertive, outspoken. But in truth, most women are still waiting for a man who's more still than they are loud. Someone who doesn't react to her fire but absorbs it, without being burned. That doesn't mean you suppress your personality. It means you don't perform it. You don't try to be likable. You don't water down your masculinity to be understood. You speak when the words mean something. You observe when most men interrupt. And you know exactly when to say the line that changes everything. Not because it's magic, but because it came from truth. Real attraction doesn't start with energy. It starts with restraint. Because energy without purpose is noise. But energy held, controlled, and revealed at the right moment, that's power. And women feel that in ways they don't even fully understand. She'll call it a vibe, a presence, a feeling. She won't have the words for it. But she'll feel safe around you without needing to know why. She'll trust your eyes more than your voice. She'll replay the moment you paused more than the words you said, because nothing is louder than a man who doesn't need to be heard. And that's the kind of presence that echoes long after she leaves the room. And then comes the test she doesn't realize she's giving. Not a game, not manipulation, something deeper. It's a calibration. She needs to feel where you begin and where she ends. So she'll press just enough. A comment that's slightly sharp, a question laced with challenge, a moment of silence to see if you'll fill it. Most men fold here. They interpret pressure as threat. They try to fix it, to smooth it, to keep her interested. They chase the comfort of approval, not realizing they just abandoned their frame. But the man who doesn't react, the one who sits in that discomfort like it's home, that man passes a test she doesn't even know she's giving. Because what she's really asking is this: can you hold the weight of me without losing the weight of you? And when your presence answers for you, something primal unlocks. Her femininity relaxes. Not because you tamed her, but because you didn't need to. You let her express. You let her spark. You let her rise. But you didn't flinch. You didn't get louder. You didn't get smaller. You didn't chase. You stayed right where you were. And that is what makes her curious. Because that stillness, that restraint, it tells her that she's not your first storm. That you've seen fire before, and you've walked through it. You're not impressed by chaos. You respect it. You witness it. But you don't bow to it. And for a woman who's used to being the emotional leader in every conversation, that's rare. That's grounding. That's attractive. Because here's the paradox of emotional leadership. She doesn't want control. She wants containment. She wants to express fully without the man crumbling under it. That's what separates presence from performance. Performance needs feedback. Presence doesn't need anything. Performance escalates. Presence deepens. And when you speak from that depth, even a few words feel like gravity. Even a glance feels like grounding. Even a silence feels like safety. This is what makes you unforgettable. Not your story, not your past, not your lines, but the way you don't leave yourself, even when she pulls, especially when she pulls. She may not be aware of it, but part of her is always watching. Will he stay calm if I'm intense? Will he stay rooted if I test him? Will he stay him if I stop trying to be me? That's the storm underneath her softness. That's the question behind her flirtation. And when you answer it, not with words, but with energy, you become the man she trusts. Not because you promise to stay, but because you don't lose yourself when she arrives. Understand this. The most attractive men are not the loudest. They're the most anchored. And anchored men don't chase waves. They let the tide come to them. Because they know the ocean always returns to what doesn't move. She might not say it out loud, but she'll feel it. That shift inside her. That small flicker of unfamiliar emotion, respect mixed with curiosity, safety wrapped in tension. She's not used to that. Most men mirror her energy. They react to her charm, her rhythm, her lead. But you don't follow tempo. You set it. And that's what makes her lean in, not physically, but emotionally. She starts giving you more. Not because you asked, not because you chased, but because your stillness created space. The kind of space where she can reveal herself. This is what most men miss. They think leading is about control, dominance, talking louder, acting bigger, forcing outcomes. But real leadership, real masculine energy, it's not about taking the wheel. It's about owning your direction so fully that she wants to ride with you because she trusts where you're going. And she trusts you won't get lost trying to impress her. She starts to speak slower now. She reveals something about her past. Something vulnerable. Not because she's trying to hook you, but because she wants to know if you'll stay grounded when things get real. And again, most men break here. They either get too excited trying to fix her pain, or they retreat, afraid of emotional weight. You stay calm. You don't offer shallow comfort. You offer silence. You don't perform empathy. You embody it quietly, unshaken. You make it clear with your presence you can hold it. You can hold her, not as possession, as space. And that's when she starts to soften. That's when she starts to trust. Not because you said the right things, but because you never left yourself while she was showing hers. That kind of consistency, that kind of containment, it breaks through every defense she's built. Because beneath every confident woman, there's a question she rarely dares to ask. Can I stop performing now? Can I stop leading? Can I finally relax? And when your presence answers that for her, without pressure, without need, she feels something she hasn't in years. Peace. But don't mistake her peace for passivity. Because the moment she feels that space, she'll want to fill it. She'll start contributing, laughing, asking questions that actually matter. Not to impress you, not to bait you, but to build something with you. Because now she's not seducing, she's participating, she's investing. And all of it started because you didn't react, you didn't reach, you just remained. Here's what that teaches her, even if she can't put it into words: this man isn't swayed by my surface. This man doesn't need me to behave a certain way to stay present. This man is already whole, and wholeness is irresistible because it invites, not demands. It attracts, not persuades. And it never apologizes for its boundaries. This is the frame, the one most men never build, because they're too busy adjusting themselves to fit in. You build yours by holding tension, by speaking less and observing more, by letting her feel the space between your sentences. Because that space, that's where desire lives. That's where trust is born. And once it's there, once she feels it, she stops performing. She starts revealing, And from that moment on, she's not just talking to you. She's bonding with you, not with the man you pretended to be, but with the man who never moved, while she unraveled. She'll test it one more time. Not consciously, not maliciously, but deeply. Because now you're not just a man she's interested in. You're a mirror and a magnet. You reflect her, and you pull something out of her she doesn't show most people. That's terrifying. So she needs to know, is this gravity real, or just another trick disguised as depth? She might go cold for a moment, withhold affection, act detached. She might challenge your beliefs, push your boundaries, joke just a little too sharp. Not to insult, to verify. Because if your presence cracks here, if you chase, explain, overcorrect, then everything before it was performance. But if you stay calm, unbothered, not as a tactic but as a truth, she learns the lesson her nervous system has been aching for. This man doesn't disappear when I'm unpredictable. He doesn't fold when I withdraw. He doesn't spiral when I resist. He remains. And in that moment, everything changes. Because now she's not feeling chemistry, she's feeling structure. And feminine energy, no matter how independent, responds to structure with openness. The wall comes down. She looks at you not with curiosity, but with surrender. Not submission, not weakness, but a willingness to let go. Because what women truly want isn't a man who tries to hold them tighter. It's a man who holds himself so completely she finally feels free enough to stop holding everything. That's the bond no game can fake. That's what makes you unforgettable. Because you weren't trying to control the dynamic. You were just being the dynamic. And now she feels safe doing what she's secretly wanted to do the whole time, drop the performance, and meet you. Fully. But here's the part most men miss. They think this is the destination, that once she opens up the work is done. No. This is where your consistency gets tested, because now she's watching something else entirely. She wants to know if this man she felt drawn to in the beginning is the same man every time. She wants to see if the calm was a mask, if the silence was rehearsed, if the stillness was conditional. And so she watches, not your words, your energy. When she speaks with emotion, do you panic when she's uncertain? Do you grasp when she's radiant? Do you suddenly compete? All of these moments are tests of your gravity. And gravity doesn't shift for attention. It doesn't perform for praise. It doesn't react to waves. It pulls everything toward its center without effort, without movement. That's what makes a man unforgettable. Not his lines, his consistency. Not how he starts, but how he holds. And once she feels that holding something rare happens, she stops trying to lead and starts choosing to follow. Not because she's weak, but because she trusts. She trusts you'll remain steady even if she storms. She trusts your vision is strong enough to include her, but never abandon yourself. And when a woman feels that she stops needing to test, she starts wanting to build. Not because you convinced her, but because you made her feel something no one else could. The strength of a man who's already full, already chosen, already complete. That's the man she won't forget. Because she didn't just meet him, she became more of herself in his presence. And that's not game, that's gravity. She might try to describe it to her friends, but the words won't land. They'll ask, what is it about him? And she'll hesitate. Because it's not one thing, it's everything he didn't do. He didn't chase, he didn't flinch, he didn't try to fix her when she broke open mid-sentence. He didn't use compliments as currency or approval as a leash. He just stayed, solid, present, clear, like a mountain watching the wind. That kind of presence doesn't just make her feel seen, it makes her feel real. And that's the difference between attention and attraction. Attention notices her. Attraction makes her want to reveal herself. But here's the secret most men overlook. You don't get there by being clever. You don't get there by memorizing lines, mimicking tone, or practicing eye contact in the mirror. You get there by becoming the man whose words don't need decoration. You get there by removing the need to impress, not by upgrading the performance, because nothing you say matters if your energy contradicts it. If you say you're grounded but your breath stutters when she pulls away, if you say you're selective but you fold at the first sign of softness, if you say you're not easy but you reward basic attention, she'll feel the crack. And the moment she senses the mask, the magic dies. But when your words, your eyes, your pauses, all speak from the same still place, she doesn't feel seduced. She feels invited into a space where she doesn't have to lead, where she doesn't have to perform, where she doesn't have to be louder, faster, smarter, just to keep a man's attention. Because your attention isn't based on what she gives, it's based on who she is when she's not giving anything. That's rare. That's what creates emotional weight. Because now every time you speak, especially when you speak lightly, she feels something deeper behind it. A sentence becomes a question. A pause becomes a pull. And when you say something as simple as, "I like that about you," she doesn't just hear approval. She hears recognition, not for her image, for her essence. And the moment she feels that, she begins to mirror it. She stops asking who you want her to be. She starts showing who she actually is, not for validation, for alignment. And that's when your words stop sounding like compliments and start sounding like truth. But only if you mean them. Only if you deliver them the way a man delivers anything real, with no rush, with no need, with no apology. You want to make an impact. Don't flatter. Don't perform. Don't chase. Speak like a man who already knows his worth. Speak like a man who could say more, but chooses not to. And when the moment is right, when she's opened something rare, even briefly, you say what no one else noticed. Not her looks, not her energy, not her cleverness. You say that right there. That's what I like most about you. Then you stop talking. You let the silence do the rest. And in that silence, her mind won't just hear your words. It will replay the entire moment, frame by frame. Because that's what happens when you're not performing. You become a reference point, a signal, a standard. And whether she ever tells you or not, you just raised the bar for every man who follows. She won't forget it. Not because of what you said, but because of how little you needed to say. You were still when others were loud. You were sure when others were trying to be liked. You looked at her not to take something, but to see something. And what you saw, she felt it. You saw past the mask, past the performance, past the game. You spoke directly to the part of her that's rarely touched, the part that doesn't want to be admired, but understood. And now she remembers you differently. You're not the guy who texted too much. You're not the one who cracked jokes to fill the silence. You're not the one who asked for her time like a favor. You're the one who gave presents like it cost nothing and meant everything. That kind of man doesn't beg to be remembered. He just is. And here's what no one tells you. When a woman feels something about herself in your presence that she doesn't feel with anyone else, you become emotionally permanent. You didn't try to prove value. You revealed it, not hers, yours, because you knew that your attention has weight, and your silence has direction, and your words, few as they may be, don't orbit around her. They ground her. That's not charisma. That's discipline. And it's built slowly, in solitude, in moments when you could have spoken, but didn't. When you could have chased, but didn't move. When you could have reacted, but chose stillness. That man you isn't trying to be a mystery. You just are one. Not because you hide, but because you don't offer everything at once. You let people earn their way into your depth. And when they do, When she finally sees that your calm wasn't a trick. When she realizes your restraint wasn't a tactic. When she feels your words weren't designed to control, but to clarify. She changes, not because you forced her to, but because in your presence she remembered something. Her softness is safe here. Her strength is seen here. Her truth is welcomed here. Not judged, not rushed, not filtered. And now she wants to speak more. Not to impress you, but to connect with you. Because connection like this calm, clean masculine is rare, and women know it the moment they feel it. They'll say it's your energy, your presence, your vibe. But what they're really feeling is a man who doesn't move unless it matters. A man who doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't overcompensate. A man who doesn't need to be chosen to know his own value. And the paradox, that's the man they choose, over and over, not because he asked for it, but because he led in silence. And they followed in surrender, not weakness, trust. And here's where it all comes full circle. You didn't use magic words. You didn't study lines, memorize responses, or decode signals. You just learned to mean what you say, and say less, to watch longer and react slower, to feel the moment and let her feel it too. Because you understand something simple. Power doesn't speak often. It doesn't need to. And the man who knows his power knows exactly when to speak it. If this hit something real in you, remember one thing. Don't just watch this and move on. Apply it, live it. Become the man who doesn't speak for reaction, but for impact. And if you're done chasing noise, if you're ready to live with clarity, discipline, and quiet strength, subscribe. Because what's coming next isn't for everyone. It's for the few men who are ready to lead without performance and live without apology. Let's build that man one truth at a time.